Hello, everybody. Welcome, Jane. Welcome, Sharon. I have had the pleasure of these two fabulous humans volunteering to tell us a little bit about my Get Shit Done productivity circle. They participated in the pilot round and they are going to stick around, which is very, very exciting for our next 3 month block. And they're going to tell us a little bit about their own experience and what they've gotten from. I want to say the like it's a program, but it's not a program. And I think if we can hear from you, that'll kind of help I don't know, I think maybe explain it and give it a little bit more context, because I was saying to the two of them just a moment ago, like, I can tell you how great this is. I know how great this experience is, but it's sometimes it's a lot better to hear it from the perspective of someone who's actually in it and participating in it. So I'll stop talking and I'll hand over to Jane. Jane, tell us a little bit about your experience and what you've got out of it.
So I think the word you're looking for, it's like a little mini mastermind, really, isn't it? It's not like that real formal mastermind where you have really in-depth calls and really specific, I suppose, targets and things that you're really aiming for. But it's this lovely little sort of like casual mini mastermind where we're revisiting lots of information and supporting each other. And I think what I've really enjoyed about it, because I've done masterminds before, I did your mastermind when you had it running a few years ago. Um, it's been a little bit like a little revisit into that little mastermind sort of group, but in a nice, gentle way. And for me, what it has done is kept me on track. So it's helped me really focus on the areas of my business that I've been really aiming to focus on this year, which for me has just been coming back to those foundations and simplifying as much as possible, especially because I was sort of homebound and stuck with an injury. So, I had to come back and just look at what my client journey looked like and focus on, that sort of aiming for excellence of service rather than all the big, beautiful, wonderful, glittery things that we like to focus on. So for me, it's really kept me on track with doing those basic things in my business that just help everything flow much better for myself and for my clients.
I love that. And I, for the last, I don't know, maybe six, maybe a bit more months, have been using an example of like trying to educate my followers on my interpretation of what business as usual means. And I used to always say it was terrible. So I've got a friend, Deb, and I used to say, imagine I'm bushwalking with my friend Deb and I roll my ankle and yada, yada, yada. And I'd go in and do this example. And at very similar times, both Jane and I have had injuries below the shin, ankle and foot related injuries rather. And it's funny because what I then said is business as usual is the things that you pick back up straight away if all were to go to shit, basically. And Jane and I have both had that experience in the last 6 months where an injury has kind of put everything into a bit of a tailspin. And so it's a perfect example. Maybe I'll stop using that example, but maybe we'll see how it goes.
No,
It's
keep
a
using that one because we've already done those injuries, so we won't do them again, right? Whereas
Yeah,
if you start thinking about breaking an arm, let's
maybe I'll
not go
keep using it. Yeah, absolutely. So yeah, it's so good because it's a living, breathing example of what I've been talking about and what I've been teaching. So as you said, that bright, shiny object stuff, those things that we're, in pursuit of and our goals that we're chasing down, if we are reestablishing or reemerging or whatever that looks like, we actually don't really have the capacity to focus on those big things. We really need to get those foundations in place. And if we don't, then, we're chasing and pursuing things with faulty or shaky or, incomplete foundations. And that's not a good model of business. So even if you have had an established business and then things have changed, business as usual is a great way to kind of get your foot back in the door, no pun intended, and get things going. Is there anything else you want to share from that perspective, Jane? And then we'll have a chat to
yeah.
Sharon.
I definitely think like the pilots really helped me sort of keep that focus when I've been coming back into actual physical client work, because now that
Yeah.
I'm allowed back in the office and moving around a bit more, I can feel it would have been very easy that I would have been like focusing on those big shiny things, which are great. And I've got a list of them. Don't worry, they're there. But it's sort of like, let's just put them on the list and we'll come back later. But I can sort of, I've got everything flowing really well. So now that I'm seeing the impact as I come back into work, because I am fatiguing because of my injury, and having to rehab and everything, but it's sort of like going, okay, cool. Like everything's flowing really well and I can manage my energy levels. So it's really solidified that foundation for me. And that's been, really useful in this process. And I think that's
Yeah.
such an important part of running your business, is having those processes so strong so that in these situations, because you don't know when they're going to happen, it just, you're not panicking and stressing and worrying sort of thing. You know that it's going to be just really simple. Okay, let's come back to the basics. So yeah.
Yeah. I was talking to someone just the other night, here in town. I'm in Yeppoon at the moment, and we were talking about like the, let me see if I can remember the conversation. Coming back to basics. Nah, it's gone as quickly as it came on in. It'll come back to me a little bit later. Gosh, it was so good too. Anyway, obviously wasn't meant to be said right here, right now. I'll pause and we'll move on. Anyways, thank you for sharing that, Jane. Sharon, we're keeping it real here. Tell us a little bit about your experience.
Well, I came back into business after having a 4-year hiatus, and it was really overwhelming because there's so many things that you need to do. You've got an idea of how to do things, and when you're in business, you've got yourself going. But coming back in, it's a little bit overwhelming. And one of the things that happened in this course was that because we went through in a very logical, ordered way, it sort of cut down on the overwhelm and the way that the information, because you've got a gap, from when you come in, because things have changed in the business world. For different types of packages have changed, and different types of just the way you work has changed. And so coming in and being able to get the information A, B, C all follows through, and then the co-working sessions to be able to implement what we're doing in a structured way. That hold on, I've still got a question about this. And it was great too, because it's a great bunch of women to work with, because even if Chenae is sort of going, I remember that story about your poon, but I can't quite remember it. There's somebody else in the group that goes, oh, this is what she's talking about, or this is what I'm talking about. So it's not just Chenae that's really great about the program. It's the support from everybody else as well, and that's really
Mm,
valuable. And I've really enjoyed that.
yeah,
And getting to meet other women who are working in the same situation that I'm in, and it's sort of like you get that sort of feeling of group support as well,
yeah.
which is a really nice thing to have.
Mm,
And in the hot seats that Chenae has run, that has been excellent, because it's like those questions were my questions,
yeah,
and that was great.
yeah, yeah. I love that. And we had the hot seat call just the other week, and it's there was 3 volunteers who stepped up. There was more volunteers than that, but in terms of timing, the reason why there was only 3 hot seats is because I promise, I guarantee in this experience that every single call that you show up at, you get doing time. There is implementation time. There is, even if it's only 10 minutes, there is guaranteed time and space for you to take what we've talked about or looked at or I've explained or whatever we've covered, and spend some time implementing that, whether it's doing, whether it's letting it percolate. That's always the case. And you're right, Sharon, because you're not the only person who has echoed that sentiment, that said, I've gotten so much out of this conversation, and I wasn't even the one in the hot seat. And I find that that is also true for me. Like back in the day when I was in Tasha's business academy, I learned so much about things that weren't relevant for me yet in my business journey from people who were a little bit further along or having a different experience, or all of these different kind of parallel experiences. I learned so much from that, from people being in the hot seat and just tuning in, listening in, and I got so much value out of that. So I'm glad to hear that you can echo that experience as well. Is there anything else you want to share, Sharon? Anything else about what you've gotten out of it so far that you think is important to add?
I've liked the timing of the sessions. It's been very relevant, and also I get annoyed when things go over time, because I have kids, so I only have a certain amount of hours in a day to work, and the fact that you're able to time keep we finish our sessions on time. So important,
Mm,
because then I can go off and do the next thing that I need to do, rather than now I'm running half an hour, three-quarters of an hour behind myself for the rest of the day. That's
yeah,
really important for me. We start on time, we finish on time,
yeah,
and that's, yeah, it just makes such a big difference. And it
mm.
also means that I'm able to say, I'm able to say, this is my Chenae spot. And so I love that fact. And that's what I call it on my thing, my Chenae spot. And it's just sweet. It's just lovely. But yeah, that timing thing, I'm not overwhelmed by the amount of information that I'm given.
Yeah.
And I'm not underwhelmed. It's just at the right amount at the right time. And I like the way that the topics are set out too. They flow really, really well.
Just a little bit of Goldilocks. Not too little, not too much, just right. Not too hot, not
Yes.
too cold, just right. Yeah.
Yeah, eating the porridge
Eating the
instead of
porridge.
frogs.
Yes, exactly, exactly. And that's really intentional. I'm glad you said that, Sharon. So when you come in and we do a 3 month block together, there's an orientation call. And so everyone who's already in there doesn't need to attend the orientation call because they know the lay of the land. But at the beginning, there's an orientation call. And then we move into things, as Sharon says, in a really logical way. So the first thing we do is a planning call. We actually do some business planning so that you have some focus and some clarity and some direction. Then we move into the business as usual, and there's 2 blocks of that. And then the live calls then continue on through the rest of the quarter. And, the pilot's been really wonderful. I've just put a little survey out to see what they'd like to focus on, and everyone has voted for what they'd like some of the future calls to be on. And so these 2 fabulous humans, along with a bunch of others, have voted on, what we're going to be doing for the next little while together in the pilot before it turns into July, August, and September with a slightly new, I suspect, with a few new faces, but a very lovely still cohort moving forward. All right, we're all done. Thank you so much. If anyone who's listening would like to come and get some shit done with us and a few other fabulous humans, then I'd love to invite you in. It's a productivity circle. It's designed for us to get shit done. There's a little bit of teaching, a little bit of info. You can ask your questions. Hopefully, as Sharon has echoed, you feel really supported. And yeah, I'd love to invite you. Anything that either of you would like to add before we close up?
No, just yeah, I'm really enjoying my time in this course. I am getting shit done, so thank you.
Excellent. Does what it says on the box.
It does.
I'm glad it's continuing, because for me it feels like, going into that next 3 months, I've got that ongoing, and I do mentoring with Chenae. I have to make that clear. Like, I do a 2-on-1 mentoring with Chenae, which just means we meet on a regular basis, and I have her support all the time. But this is just a different level. It's just more that day-to-day doing activity side of things, and it just keeps me focused. So I'm really looking forward to maintaining that through the next couple of months, and probably for me for as long as she runs it right now. Because I have seen such productivity and growth with it. So it's just that, yeah, this is worth my dollars and my time. So yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. And for $240 for a whole quarter, plus GST if you're in Australia, but we're not all in Australia. We've got New Zealand and we've got Malaysia and we've got a few in the United States. So, sometimes GST is not relevant. That's pretty great for a whole 3 months. There's multiple calls in a month. Like, it's pretty good value in terms of the number of live calls you get. I'm acutely aware of that. But I want to make it super accessible and make it something that people can do because the benefits there, it's hard to understand why we would pay for co-working, but hopefully this conversation has kind of highlighted how it's so much more than just co-working and that there is a lot more to take from it. I'm very excited. So good. Amazing. Thank you both. Thank you, Jane. Thank you, Sharon. It's been a pleasure. And if you've got any questions about how to get shit done with me, get in touch. I'd love to answer them. Bye.